Welcome back to the podcast. Last week, I was at a conference with, I think, more than 100 leaders, all leaders that are willing to explore their inner life, that are willing to go beyond what society defines as leadership. Basically, they're willing to be a little bit more conscious and work with their heart and create environments and cultures where their business and people thrive. So whenever I'm surrounded by those types of leaders, obviously there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of interesting subjects that come up. The theme for that conference or reunion was between darkness and light. There were two panelists that were discussing the subject, and it was interesting for me to sit in and take in their conversation and the questions that were asked afterwards. My lips were burning by the end. I wanted to say something, and the moderator saw that, came to me, wanted to give me the mic, but as life wants it, I suppose somebody else raised their hand right next to me, and I felt compelled to let them talk and ask their question because mine was just, was not a question, was an affirmation. Let's put it this way. So I was inspired to record today's podcast to talk a little bit more about darkness and light. And what is darkness? Where it's coming from? How it's impacting our lives as leaders in the corporate world or not. And then to address what was never addressed during that beautiful conversation, because it was beautiful. I just feel that it's my duty to share that for those that are willing to receive it and are seeking other types of answers. So let's dive in. The most surprising thing for me during that exchange, it was a whole morning, was that we talked extensively about darkness and light. And when talking about darkness, the word ego never came up. And that's where our challenges, dark moments, darkness, shadow, it's all coming from there. It's all the same thing. I think the main narrative during that exchange was that we need those dark moments, challenges, obstacles, the shadow in order to find a light. And yes, I mean, we can all experience this in one way or another. We can probably find out in our deep memories or recent experiences some things that we had to overcome. And it turns out that it was a bright side to it, or it helped us in some way. When you're presented with a challenge or an obstacle in your work or your daily life, and you're able to transform that, rise above that, use it somehow in order to grow, well, then it served its purpose. It helped you evolve. And I always say the same thing as others have said. We are here on Earth to evolve. Earth is the school of life. And we're going to face those challenges and obstacles, whatever they are, anywhere. And we either suffer from them and stick into this vicious cycle, or on the other hand, we use them or we work with them in order to evolve and grow. These are our two options. There's no way around that. And our own growth, our own evolution will either go through our sufferings, like I've said in this podcast many times, or it will go through moments of enlightenment or more awareness, more consciousness. Therefore, it doesn't mean that we need to suffer. It doesn't mean that we need to go through obstacles and hurdles and darkness and shadows in order to evolve. But it's mainly the case for everybody, me included. I had to go through my own share of darkness and shadow and suffering in order to emerge or die to that version of myself and be reborn into something else. That's what die to be reborn means, by the way. Then don't have to be religious or Catholic or whatnot to agree with this. Excuse me. Dying to be reborn means not following the course that you've set for yourself in this lifetime, and dying to that version that you are in order to be reborn in a newer, more evolved, more conscious version of who you truly are, which is not what you think you are, if that makes any sense. And I think right there, that phrase is getting us into the crux of the conversation. You think you are what you are not. And that's your ego's work. It has done marvels for you until now to make you believe a bunch of stuff that are not true. But you cannot blame him or it or her or whatever, how you may refer to your ego. For me, sometimes it's it. It's thing. It's thing. Because I've realized that it doesn't have the power that I thought it had on me. And that's the work we need to do. We, again, create our ego through a bunch of experiences that we go through in our lifetime. And instead of allowing those experiences to happen and just be done with it and move on, well, we create concepts and views and opinions and judgments and all that around those experiences and situations that have happened that we were not able to let go of because they ridiculed us, they made us suffer, because they hurt us somehow. That's one way that we create our own ego. The other way is much more natural. As we grow and we go from being babies to all of the other stages of our life, we naturally need to create those concepts and views about who we are because we don't know. Think about it, right? If you agree with me that you're a soul living in this body, it must be very disturbing for the soul to drop down into a body and come out of your mother's womb and not understand what's happening here. And therefore to solidify a concept of who you are, well, you will cling to mommy and daddy and where you live and who are your friends and siblings and your crib and your blankie and your toys and whatnot. And this is what I am, you know? And it's very natural for the ego to develop that way. I don't see that as a problem when you grow up, unless you still cling to those concepts that you've created for yourself. It hurts when you're not able, like we said, to let go of people and situations and events and experiences that are uncomfortable. The minute you cling to those, and then you start to do the ego's work which is to blame, bitch, control, manipulate, hide, protect, and whatnot, then you're in trouble. And we are all in trouble, to be honest. We don't need to talk about mental health that extensively. I think we can all agree that we suffer from mental health, and our ego is mainly responsible for that. And there's a lot of darkness there. In some psychological book, they will call it the shadow. Same thing. It's this concept of yourself that you created. That's called your ego, your shadow, your darkness. That will lead your life. So you think you're leading your life, but in reality, it's your egos that's living your life for you. You're living life through the veil of your ego. It's like I'm wearing glasses right now, and these are my ego's glasses. So whenever something happens with work or my family or the kids or whatnot, or just the other day, for instance, I was crossing the street with one of the kids holding them in my arm, and a car decided to turn right behind me. And I was not done crossing this section of the road. And it was pretty close. I mean, the car passed right behind my legs. And if I'm looking at this situation that sounded alarming, that could potentially hurt me, and then I see through the veil of my ego, or through the glasses of my ego, right, that I'm wearing now, that this reminds me of some accident that I was into before and all the trauma that came with it, or perhaps it bothers me because I judged a person, but perhaps I get hangry because I got fearful for my safety. If all that happens through those glasses, the ego glasses, then a couple of things can unfold from this. I can lash out at the guy. I can start worrying and creating a bunch of thoughts and negative feelings about the situation that are going to ruin my beautiful walk on a nice sunny day. I can get so freaked out about the supposedly avoided accident that next time that I cross the street, I'm worried and I'm getting scared. Or perhaps, you see what I'm saying, right? The moment I allow myself to see such a situation or events or experiences through the glasses of my ego, and then I fuse with it, perhaps, I'm doomed. This is going to create so much damage for me, potentially others, that we are living in darkness when we do that. That's our ego's work. And we're not living our life when we do this. We're allowing our ego to lead our life. There's the tremendous sufferings that come around this. The flip side of this is to transform, use that experience to see with love, compassion, and that's all light. Darkness is ego for me. Light is love and compassion. Or we can stop at love. Compassion is part of love, right? Which is what I did. It so happens that maybe 5 blocks later, I crossed paths with the gentleman again. And I went to see him. I waved at him. I walked up to him. And I had a conversation. I was reflecting on what I said. And I was loving. I was polite, but direct. Because I wanted him to understand that it is safer, perhaps, to wait until pedestrian completely cross the road, especially with a kid in their arms, before scooping around them. And I think because of my, yes, firmness, but all of the love that I brought to the message, potentially 2 people and more even perhaps got transformed or got elevated yesterday because of this intervention. I could have yelled at him, shoot him a bunch of bad words and stuff like that. But what would I've done is just to create suffering for me and him and potentially others. It's dumping your load on somebody else when you do that. And who knows what he's going to do then? He's going to scoop around maybe the next person, and maybe he's going to hit that person. Or maybe he's going to start lashing out on somebody else because he was not able to himself deal with how I approached him. So you see how this is a wonderful chain of events that can unfold and hurt so many others when you allow yourself to be led by the veil of your ego. Now this chain stops if I don't do it or if he doesn't do it. Maybe I lash out at him and shoot a bunch of bad words and insult him and do crazy stuff like that. And he just says, oh, well, poor guy. He's going to have a bad day. Okay. And he moves on. And then it's fine. And we all have the same decisions to take every day in different situations with different people and different experiences that we go through. Are we going to lead with our protected, fearful, controlling, manipulative ego? Or are we going to bring some light, some love, some compassion into every moment and encounter that we have? Which reminds me, a beautiful question that was asked by someone during that conference. The person was saying, look, if I'm trying to be that light, and then my spouse comes in from work, and they're not in a light. As a matter of fact, they're pretty much in the dark or the darkness. What do I do with that? How can I help them? Or how can I avoid this situation? And there's 2 parts to this that are very important for everybody to understand. The first part is you should always try to raise the situation. Look, life is going to unfold as it will. You don't have control over that at all. You think you do, but you don't. It's funny to think that life is going to unfold in a certain way and it shouldn't, that we could have done something or that we should do something in order to change that. How many events, words, situations, people, encounter, experiences happened over a lifetime so that one shows up in a bad mood from work and lashes out at you? Look, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole because you think it has to do with the fact that the person got reprimanded for not dealing well with a client, or maybe they lost a client and the boss, lashed out at them. That's not the core of it all. That's just a tiny spark of the whole reality of cause and effect. I mean, how many causes, events, or stuff needed to happen before that created the following moment and event and whatnot in order to get to this point where I lash at you because you lost a client? The list is enormous. So the first thing is to realize I don't have any control over what unfolds in front of me. It just does. For a myriad of situations and events and words and moments and people and whatnot, it's crazy. So it is right there in front of me. It unfolds. It is what it is. It is what it is. Can you deal with that? And can you raise it? That's what it comes down to. If you can't deal with it, you can't raise it. So let's start there. And dealing with it doesn't mean that you need to do something about it externally. First and foremost, it means I need to deal with it inside. Because yes, we'll all agree that when your spouse comes in and starts shouting or bitching or bringing that cloud of darkness while you're in a good mood, well, it's not fun. But do you need to care about it? Do you need to care about it so much that you get involved and you fuse with it and you get upset and you start to try to control and manipulate and do things in order to have your spouse or better half not be in this because it's so uncomfortable for you? Now we're getting something. Because it is so uncomfortable for me, I step in and I start to try to do things. And that's the core of what the gentleman asked in that meeting. His desire to change the situation because it is uncomfortable is the very reason why we're having this conversation in the first place. It is all coming from his own ego. So before even asking what should I do with that and what can I do and how can I support, and hey, hold on, wait a minute, backtrack this whole thing and realize that you're only asking because you're not okay with it inside, and your desire to control and manipulate and change the moment is so strong because your ego is leading you into this game. So if you're following, in a situation like this, a couple of things are going to happen and unfold. First, you're in a good place. You're in the light. The person comes in from work. They're in the darkness. They're in their shadow. They're bringing a shitload of bad stuff into the house. What are you going to do with that internally, inside? First, can you just say, oh, well, they're had a bad day. It is what it is. Or do you need to jump in, both hands and both feet in, and try to do something to protect yourself? These are your two options. Now, if you go with the first one, it had a bad day, it is what it is. Perhaps it stops there. And you know that they're capable of doing what they need to do in order to come back to their equilibrium. Maybe that's the case. Maybe you need to do something after all. I think that's the essence of non-dualism that people don't get. Being in this dualistic reality doesn't mean that you don't do anything. Perhaps sometimes it is just to not do anything. But at times, you will have to act. Most of the time, to be honest, you will have to act. You will have to do something. But first and foremost, can you make sure that you've done the trip inside in order to act outside with light, with peace, with harmony, with compassion, with love, with equanimity? Can you come from that space before doing anything else externally? And that's the biggest game changer, if I can put it that way. And if you're not capable of doing that in a moment, well, at least spend a little bit more time contemplating why you're being so tempted to control and manipulate and do something about your desire to change the situation. And if you look closely, you will uncover that it is very uncomfortable for you and you're suffering. And that's your ego's work trying to protect you and do its thing so that you don't go through that. And that's the work we all need to do in so many other circumstances and situations. This just happens to be one of the questions that was brought up. That is a great example for anything else that we go through. In the midst of contemplating how you're being affected by such experiences and moments, there's inevitably a conversation that rises up. And it did in that meeting with those leaders. We talked about vulnerability a lot and how one needs to be able to sit with their own vulnerabilities and kind of make friends with them, acknowledge them, see them for what they are, and be okay with that. This is a very popular spin on it. The deeper you go spiritually, the deeper you navigate your path, and the more you evolve, the more you become conscious, the less you pay attention to those vulnerabilities. Because instead, you want to go for a deeper truth. How can I frame this? What comes up is honesty. The true reality of who you are in things, meaning, yes, you can sit with your own vulnerabilities and accept them and welcome them and show yourself a bit of love and compassion and do all these stuff. But you can also say, well, I do feel that, and I do have those vulnerabilities because I made them up. When you start to understand that you created your own predicament unknowingly, by the nature of going with the pull of your ego and your concepts and views and your opinions and your judgments and your desires and your dreams and your hopes and whatnot, you manufactured your whole life around that and created those vulnerabilities. The moment you start to touch who you truly are, which is not that, then you want to spend more time there. You want to spend more time there. You want to spend more time exploring the deeper truth of who you are, and the light that you are because you've experienced it, you touched it. When you're so at peace, when you are so content with just sitting and looking at a sunset with a tea in your hand, the beauty of it all, you marvel at the creation of this beautiful landscape that you see. It is so inspiring, so beautiful. You feel so much gratitude for being able to experience that. You become so filled with love that those moments reveal to you who you truly are and what you're capable of experiencing and feeling inside. Hence, do you want to spend time cajoling your vulnerabilities? Or you want to spend time sitting in this complete bliss and joy that you've experienced and that you know you are? It's an interesting paradox, isn't it? I know I need to accept, welcome, see what's going on for what it is, and, vulnerability. And at the same time, I can surf another wave, a higher one, that lets me know that I'm not that. And I can transform, rise above those vulnerabilities that I think I possess in me, that I think I have. It's an evolution, really. You might have to sit with all this and do a lot more inner work prior to being able to flip the switch and go full-blown light and compassion and bring that in. But that's the path we're all walking. I was asked today, what's spirituality for you? And for the first time, I was able to be completely honest with myself in delivering my answer. Because so far, like I said to the person, I've only given half of the answer to those that have asked me the question. And even on podcasts that I was invited to, by explaining what spirituality was for me, I was still hiding the full truth of what I think it is really. To, again, ego. We're good. It's so beautiful. We're going back to the stock. My ego was not allowing me to be completely honest and authentic in my answer to that question, because I was trying to get something out of people that might listen to this podcast. In other words, if I'm trying to bring spirituality in the workplace, and I bring a dimension of spirituality that people are not ready or willing to embrace yet, that I'm not going to be able to reach out to these folks and talk to these folks and work with these folks. So I would rather give them half of the answer, which is the one that they will potentially more resonate with, because it's safer for their own ego, our own conceptions, than giving it all. So me too, I was answering and going about this situation through the veil of my own ego. Isn't that interesting, huh? So the other half of the answer that I've never given before, potentially maybe a lot of people can learn to, because I've learned to it because I talked about it, is the following. The first half of the answer is spirituality is about your own evolution. It's about your inner growth. It's about being in harmony with life. These are my words. But it is also, and even more at the end of the day, about what the word has in it. How can you talk about spirituality without talking about spirit. It is in the word, spirituality. Spirituality is a journey we are all walking in our own evolution, inner growth, finding harmony in our life and peace, so that we may be united. We may be in union with God, the Creator, the divine, the universe, life, call it whatever you want. For me, it's God. And the more you walk that path, the more your journey evolves too. It has stages, like anything else. At the beginning, you're really focused on doing inner work that will help you to cast away from the concepts and views and opinions that you created for yourself, from the suffering that you have. It's healing work. And the more you progress, the more you go towards God. And the more all you want is to be with Him. The more you want to feel the presence, the more you want to be in that blissful, joyful state that you get to experience in this journey. And I'm saying this because I think I want to close the loop on the subject of dark, between the darkness and the light, by revealing that this is truly the light we're talking about. If we're not here on earth to go through our journey back to God, I don't know what we're here for. For me, this is the main purpose. This is the meaning of our life. For me, the meaning of my life doesn't have to do with my work, doesn't have to do with my skills, my talents, whatnot. These are all wonderful things that we can reckon about ourselves. We are all unique, and we all have gifts or talents that others don't have or do have, but at a different level or whatnot. And maybe, yes, it is our duty to serve this life. And it is a byproduct of the walking the path towards light, towards God, towards love, reconciliating what we forgot about ourselves, and then giving it back and serving. And that's the path we are all walking towards light, towards love. So friends, I guess what I want to say is break free from your ego, let go of your shadow, don't live in the darkness, because truly all there is light. And if you find this to be too woo-woo for you, well, just go see the scientist, and they will tell that to you as well. As far as they looked in outer space, they couldn't tell that it's pitch black and it's darkness. There is light, always. And it is this light that we're walking our way back to and welcoming into our hearts and our mind. And while we're doing that, while we're here, being grateful to experience this beautiful planet that we have in this life, the way we're experiencing it, well, why don't we serve it? Might as well. You're here and you have something to give. So give, and don't ever look back. Cheers. Until next time.